What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Press X Podcast. Today, we are going to be ranking our top 10 N64 games. We've done this list for multiple things up to this point. We have a couple rules that we set for it.
Yep.
Each make our own top 10 list of games that we would recommend somebody purchase if they were to get an N64, basically. Our rules are pretty simple. One from each franchise. So you can't have, Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on your list. You get one from each franchise.
Or at all.
Nothing, and it doesn't really matter that much for this particular system, but no games that released on a earlier system and then got kind of brought over later to this. There's a couple examples that might
Resident
matter.
Evil 2, you're out of here.
Yeah, there's like a couple things that might matter, but
yeah, the further, we obviously have the strict rules, but they're mattering less and less the further we go back in time.
Correct. Yeah, on the PlayStation 3, it was a big deal because there was a lot of ports and stuff like that. And our lists were just becoming like PlayStation 1 and 2 games. I was like, this doesn't work very well.
Once you get past Xbox Live Arcade point, then, okay, you're pretty good.
Yeah. And so the way that we do it is we do our own lists. Each one is worth a different point value, so our number 1 is worth 10 points, our number 10 is worth 1 point. We will tally up all of our scores and then break some tiebreakers at the end and get our finished top 10 list.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one. I'm feeling good. The N64, a little bit of a weird system. There's a lot of great games on it, and then a lot of unplayable games by today's standards. They just aren't
controller.
They just aren't very fun. Yeah. So I predict, and you seem to think so too, we're not going to have a big we're going to share a lot of the same games. Which is interesting because that normally doesn't
Well,
happen
this is
that
also
much.
very franchise heavy system. I mean, just like anything Nintendo. So the major ooh and ah might be like, oh, you like this one over that one, or you like the tennis game over golf, okay, or something like that. But there shouldn't be, unless you're either just being weird or something just really stuck with you. And Craig said it too off camera. This is very top heavy, so it's not the fact that maybe the games suck per se. There's only a handful of good ones, and then everything else is trash. It's this. How in the world am I going to say that this, by all means, this mediocre game is better than this? How would I tell someone buying an N64? Nah, man, don't worry about that critically acclaimed. There's gold seals all over it, and it's like a 99 Metacritic. Don't bother with that. Get this.
Yeah, get this other game.
I'm excited for Kevin's list for that reason.
My list isn't that bad. You
The
want to
fact
start?
that you have to say that bad.
You ready to start?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
No, I'm going first.
Why are you going first?
He always goes
Because
first.
I already wrote mine down. My number 10, Starfox 64. Pretty basic game. Has a lot of voice acting for an N64 game. Has a lot of memes about it. But
a lot of barrel rolls.
Yeah, but this is just your typical on-rail, space shooter type situation. I like this game a lot. It has very memorable music, as pretty much every game on this list does. I think that just the characters and the music are so powerful in Nintendo in particular, and I feel like that's going to be a theme throughout this entire literally everything on this list except for maybe 1 or 2 games. But yeah, Star Fox, it's just their best attempt at what this is. And every game that they've made in the series since then has felt like they're kind of just trying to do this again. They hit it with 64 and then
They do it mostly right, and then there's this gimmick that gets attached to it. So.
Yeah, they just remake the same game again with a weird gimmick that doesn't work and then ruins the game. That is exactly what's happened. But anyway, there's not too much to say about it. It's a pretty short game. It's like a replayable thing. That's its thing. It's very replayable. It's got branching paths and some secret off branching things that you can go do and kind of change how things are going in boss fights and stuff like that. But just a enjoyable run through arcade style game, I guess is a good way to put it. So I'm not over the moon about this game. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to put as my number 10.
Was over the moon a space pun?
Sure, if you want it to be.
I do.
Yeah, then it was. But Star Fox 64 hitting my number 10 slot.
Which of us goes next? Okay.
Craig's new to this.
My number 10 is Waverace 64.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And
So I've never really been a big sports game type person, but I feel like the N64 was Nintendo's way of taking from their 2D to 3D, and I think we got a lot of unique type sports games, and I think Waverace is one of those. I can't really think of a lot of people that back when the N64 launched didn't at least dabble in this game. I think it was really fun, just something you could play single player, more multiplayer. It was just kind of a unique experience to that system.
That's
that we hadn't
another
had first.
good thing to say. N64 has a awesome party lineup of games, but it also has a lot of really good single player stuff that...
I would argue that as important as multiplayer was, I think that the better games on the system are single player.
Okay.
Which maybe we'll find out.
We'll
when
let
definitive
the list talk.
Yeah, we'll see at the end.
Next, like all 10 of
But
mine are multiplayer.
If I had to predict, I would say that is probably true when we get to the end of this list.
Okay, that's my 10. Nick, you're up.
I will say usually I kind of give like a theme to video game systems whenever we do these types of things. This one's kind of my extrovert system. I don't think I would be as like friendly and want to play games in crowds and like friendly and stuff, whatever. Just
When do you play games in crowds?
small crowds.
DDR?
Ooh,
LAN
that's
parties?
a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I would have been as like sociable gaming wise as I would be if this system didn't launch with sort of the party games and multiplayer type stuff. So that's why I like it at least. I'm going to go ahead and get this one out of the way because it's not a game that speaks to me, but it has to be on the list. Super Mario 64.
I told you it's happening.
I am a 2D Mario person. If I'm ever a Mario person, this game's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
I
there's
hate
a
you
reason.
so
I told
much.
you, Craig. Nick
hate you
is the
so
one
much.
that's going to screw this up.
Why are you on this episode?
What? I owned one. I played a lot of 64.
You made Craig cry.
I'm upset.
The game deserves all of its accolades. It very much is a
Is that why
foundation
it's worth 1 point to you?
for historic purpose. Yeah. It's a very fine game if you like that sort of thing. Platforming was fine.
I'm gonna be so
Adventuring,
mad at
exploring, all that stuff. Cool. I'm just not a 3D Mario person. Thanks.
I'm sorry to every
We're
person
skipping
watching the
Nick
video.
from now on. My number 9 is Conker's Bad Fur Day. A very unique game for the N64. Very much thought of as this like childish system, very kid-friendly system.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and Rare of all people, who was working on this very childish mascot game, was like, we can't do this. Let's just make this an R-rated, like full R-rated game with everything in it that Nintendo, like you wouldn't think of Nintendo as, and the parents won't care because look, it's cute and adorable, and the kids are gonna buy it,
Yeah,
and
it's a
that's
squirrel.
That's exactly what happened. I think that this is one of the lesser like platforming games on the system. I think there's much better like platformers and stuff. That's not what you're here for. This is a very funny take and parody on those things. It's kind of like what the mascots do on their day off type thing. So I definitely think if you're going to get an N64 and you are of age to purchase this game, you got to get Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Be forewarned, it is extremely expensive.
Oh,
This is not a cheap game.
Yeah, we're kind of getting away from that aspect of it. Yeah, I think like the first thing you do in the game is he's waking up from a hangover.
Oh, yeah.
Even better than that, when the game turns on and the N64 logo comes up, he comes up with a chainsaw and cuts it in half and goes, "Stupid logo."
Anyway, my number 9, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
When Nintendo-
Definitely a must-have.
When Nintendo took risks.
My number 9 is Donkey Kong 64. Another Rare game, and I think that it while it's something that I think did a lot of things different, it's definitely not one of my favorite games on the N64, but I think it does enough unique platforming and things that'll separate it, especially just being one of the big Nintendo franchises. But the reason it's specifically on my list is for that sweet, sweet Donkey Kong rap at the beginning.
Donkey Kong.
It didn't make it much higher, but it made my list because of that sweet, sweet rap.
All right, Nick, the Heartbreaker. What are you doing? Here we go.
Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Okay.
Um,
Above Mario.
I was floating between Starfox and this because conceptually kind of the same thing, even though you're in space the whole time for Starfox, and this one's more like planet to planet type stuff. But I like the fact that this was a good license material game. That always kind of gets a nod in my favor, and it's just really fun. I think you had like 12, 15, something like that, planets to go through. You play as Luke Skywalker, big sell on that one. And yeah, it's just a bunch of cool little missions that you can go through, and the control fit the controller, which that kind of gets a nod too in a lot of these scenarios, is that when you said a lot of games just don't work, I think the controller is part of that because you have to figure out which quadrant you want to use.
Do you hold it like this or do you hold it like this?
It depends on the game.
Like this?
Like a sword. So yeah, I think control-wise, it worked. So that's like an invisible point that a lot of these games get or don't get. But yeah, it was just really cool to have a licensed product, obviously flying through any of the like 10 different type of ships that you can use in all these combat scenarios, and having Star Wars theme blaring. Really fun as a kid. So number 9.
Number 8, Super Smash Brothers. So this is my least favorite of the Smash Brothers game, but once again, you're going to get the N64. You need to have the party games. This is one of the better party games that you can get. It not introduces, but it has elements of basically the rest of my list all in one game. It is the ultimate crossover for this system, before all the other Smash Brothers games came out. Mechanically, there's a lot of like cheap stuff in it and things like that.
Yep.
But that's all these games. All these games have broken things that you can do in them. It's just about the experience of playing it with other people, having a good time. And I think Smash is one of the top 3 games that you can do that with on the system in general. You gotta be playing the Smash Brothers if you're playing the N64. You know what I mean?
Way more approachable to like hand it off to your like younger brother or something like that, and he can play versus like, hey, learn this Mortal Kombat
Why
game.
did you
or
point to
something
me
like
when you said younger brother?
Because you're older than me. I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, number 8, Super Smash Brothers. No subtitle here.
I will also give super good credit to Super Smash due to the fact that was when we got great Nintendo marketing, and they had that sweet commercial. All the people dressed up in the costumes. Just
I thought you were going to say about Ness. And
no, I think that's also cool.
And Captain Falcon,
Yep.
who people had no clue who that. They were
Yep.
like, what is this? And it got people curious about it. So.
Because everyone loved Falcon.
And it
Punch.
it introduced so many good things. Like the new challenger approaching was so awesome. The idea of like the master hand is so smart. Like that game, as like a little kid, that game was a dream come true.
Yeah.
But playing it now, it's a bit clunky and everything. But I still think if you're getting the N64, you got to get the Smash Brothers
for sure.
You know what I mean?
My number 8 is Pokemon Snap. And the reason that I throw it out here is because for a lot of people, Pokemon was a big Nintendo franchise at that point. A lot of people were really into it. And I think that for most people that picked up that game, it was their first time seeing Pokemon in a 3D space. And I think that was pretty unique in the fact that they didn't just go with, here's a battler. They did something unique with it. I think that that's a game that a lot of people still like to this day. I know there's been a big push for make a new one, make an updated one, remastered, what have you. And I remember playing it as a kid and still trying to figure out all the secrets and figure out the things I was missing in each level. And I think it's a great kind of easy to get a hold of Pokemon game that'll walk you through and really just show you something different than what the franchise is usually known for.
I like it. Not really, but
You complained about it off screen earlier.
I did. I'm not a big Snap fan.
Number
Throw the
8
apple.
is F-Zero X.
I knew this would be on your list. I was wondering where.
Racers, kind of a cool thing for this system. There's a lot to choose from. There's a lot of arcade racers. There's obvious ones on here, but F-Zero is a series that I don't really get much love from, I guess, but the few games that do exist in it every decade or so, this one right up there. I don't think it's as good as maybe like GameCube version, something like that, but it was, I believe, the first jump to 3D, just like a lot of series that made their way to N64 was the big push to 3D.
Can I just say, I like watching Craig when other people are talking because he's just in his own little world doing his own thing.
I'm listening to everybody.
Anyways, it was really cool to have this game. It was really fast paced, just like you want an F-Zero game to be, and it was just really. It was a really strong game. It was really fluid, and everything just worked about it, jumping from SNES over to this, and it made use of 3D. And the controller, like I said for some of these other games, it worked. So, awesome. This one was more of a...
Number 7. Rare, taking a lot of slots on this list, probably going to take a lot of slots on the final list as well. Platformers taking a lot of slots on this list, probably going to take a lot of slots on the final list as well. My next one is Banjo Kazooie. New to Banjo Kazooie, played it, I believe, last year for the first time. Played it all the way through. Well, I guess not. Played
on
it
N64?
No,
Or on Xbox?
on Xbox. Played it all the way through to the final fight, and then I did something stupid we don't need to talk about. But anyway. Thoroughly enjoyed it. That game holds up very, very well. It is different from Mario in so many ways. I think it's more of a parallel than like a peak of which one's better. I think they're very different. Banjo's way more slow and has a more methodical
I think
pace.
Banjo's more approachable.
It's way more slow and has a more methodical pace to it, whereas I think Mario is way more... I want to use imprecise, but like, there's just this speed. I'll talk about Mario later. Anyway, really like Banjo. I really liked
it's on your
Banjo.
list?
I liked the use of having two characters interact with each other to do certain moves and certain things. I thought that was really cool. It also has a very good hub world, and I enjoyed it very much. I actually don't own the N64 copy. Need to get it. Very much want it.
Too young.
I don't understand that comment.
Me neither.
He never had an N64. He's too young.
How old are you?
What?
How old are you?
27?
I'm 28 and I had an N64.
You're only 28?
Yeah.
Man,
You
he's not
mean
way
I don't
older.
have an N64?
You didn't have one when it came out.
I'm so confused.
Just go.
All right.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I guess so. I just got real derailed. What's your next one, Craig?
My next one we already talked about. My number... We're on 7, right?
Yes.
My number 7 is Conker's Bad for a Day. I just liked how this game, like we kind of already said, it did something different and was unique. And I think that looking back on it now and playing through it and looking through all the not safe for work add-ins is just awesome. And I think that, I think that it, like Nick said, it's something that Nintendo would never do now. And so it's something you definitely have to look back at when they were willing to take that risk.
I think that's what we ended up saying a lot about GameCube. Maybe not in like a Conker sort of way, but Nintendo taking risks, like going for the high quality visual direction.
It's interesting because it's not taking a risk. It's Nintendo doing what everybody else was doing. And we just don't see that a lot. Nintendo being like, oh, we're going to have lots of genres of games and have nice graphics and a controller that's not 3 prongs.
Number 7, Mario Party. Kind of like what you were saying about Smash as far as being a kid. Still, at least at that age for me, it was a lot of, hey, we can play the video games or we can go play the Monopoly or the, whatever physical board game. And this kind of merged both of those worlds and say, let's just play the board game on the video game, but in a really cool way. And usually with the, typical like real old school board games, you don't get like super competitive and smashing buttons and trying to win the thing as aggressively as you would in like a Mario Party. And that kind of brought that to life. And it was just more sit next to your buds and try and beat them at the fun game. And it just worked really well. So
Interesting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On how our ranking things work, do the points go toward the individual game or toward the franchise?
Individual game.
individual game.
So, like, if I picked a different Mario Party, they would only be worth that many points.
Correct.
Wow, you really fudged that one up, Nick. Thanks.
Oh, man, he's spoiling everything.
Yeah. Cut it out.
Sorry.
My next one. What number are we on? 6?
Yeah.
Mario Kart 64. Not the best iteration of this franchise, I don't think, personally. Some people swear by this one still, and that's cool and that's great. But definitely a good time with friends. One of the best party games. Oh my gosh. It's a little bit weird to put yourself in that, like, play it again now, having played the new ones. Just the way that, like, it feels like the background scrolling and you're standing still. It has that, like, weird effect to it with the 3D and everything. But I just cannot deny that this game is just pure joy and pure fun and has some of the best still levels in any of the Mario Kart series, including an amazing Rainbow Road that is still the best one that they've ever done. Not too much to say about it. It was balanced. It was before all the crazy gimmicks and the crazy carts, and the roster was insane. But as far as just playing a 4-person kart racing game, you cannot go wrong with the Mario Kart 64. Also, once again, I want to shout out all these games, but the music, so good. It's
next to no downtime too, other than the trophy ceremony sort of thing at the end of a GP.
Sure.
You just keep going. So,
Craig,
What number are we on?
6.
My number 6 is Mario Party 2. The reason why I chose the second one, I feel like they added a lot of features that kind of improved on the first one. I think if you were to kind of take a general census of people that, if an N64 Classic came out, which Mario Party game people would want on it, I think 2 would win out. I think it's kind of the overwhelming favorite just due to the games and the mechanics and things that they updated from the first one. That's why I chose it.
Fair point.
it's Mario Party but better. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Number 6. The best first-person shooter on the console, Pokemon Snap. Really love this game. It was a nice...
It's going to make 7 so many because it's definitely making the list now.
Oh my God.
It was a nice departure from kind of what you were saying about Pokemon games. It's a huge investment to play the Game Boy games and to go all the way through, beat the gyms, collect the things, all that. And this one was a very casual, just... You're riding around taking pictures of stuff, and it was sweet. I don't think games like Pokemon Go would hardly exist without this somewhere in the history and the timeline of Pokemon games. They're not too... It's not like it's the same game sort of thing, but I think there's aspects of it of you're just having a good time strolling around in like a cart, I guess, whatever it was, like a roller coaster ride.
It's like a go-kart or something.
And taking pictures of stuff. There's little secrets. Oh, how do I get the picture of that thing? Or, you're looking at your list and you're missing a few people. How'd you get them?
Actually kind of like a weird roller coaster wheelbarrow.
Yeah. It's like a theme park sort of thing. But yeah, it was puzzle-like in a sort of way where, it's not just the thing comes at you take a picture. The thing comes at, like, you have to peek around and you have to enable some sort of things to pop up, and
You have to take a good picture.
Yeah.
That'll rate you on how good your picture
that
or how
too.
visible
And
they
it's
were.
not just snapping like crazy. So yeah.
Whenever you take a good picture at the end when Professor Oak's rating you, he'd go, "Oh boy."
So this is, on paper, if you said, here's the description of this game, like you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna like, or this seems like
Then you
very
play
simple.
it and you feel the same way.
Then you play it and you experience the true bliss.
And you play all the way until you find Mew at the end, and it's great.
Yeah. It's just quality game. Really cool idea, and it was a nice addition to the massive Pokemon library. And yeah, anytime a spin-off Pokemon game gets announced, and like, hey, we're gonna do a Pokemon Direct, there's always people probably within the top 10 comments that say Pokemon Snap 2 or remake or whatever. So it's desperately wanted, and there's a subsection of people that really enjoy the game. So it fits nicely with this
Some might say
catalog.
2/3 out of most people.
I'm still mad at Nick for knocking Sunshine off the GameCube list, so whatever.
Oh.
Wait, Sunshine wasn't even on his GameCube list?
No, and he knocked it off the finished list. It didn't even make the finished list because of him.
We don't need that Mario here.
What?
He's just a horrible human being.
I mean, that won't happen this time. There's no way. right. 64 doesn't make the list.
Next up,
That's up to y'all, not me.
number 5, correct?
Yeah, I think we're at 5.
GoldenEye 007. This game surprises me. I actually think it holds up much better than people give it credit for. Going back and playing it recently.
Wrong.
Really? You don't think it holds up very well?
It depends. When you look at people in the game, can you make out what their faces look like?
Who cares?
Because to me, it just looks like everyone's like smudged and blurry.
Sure, everybody does look
It
like
also
they're going
makes
like
me
this.
feel like my gun is attached to my face.
But I really like it because it has this auto-targeting system to it. Like, you can manually target if you want. But I'm talking specifically about the single player, actually. Going back through and doing some of the missions in the single player, it does... You really feel like James Bond. But by that I mean, like, the auto-targeting system, you feel like a boss when you just walk into a room and you're like... Pew, 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 pew. With that silence, the sounds that the guns make are really, really good. They're really, really satisfying. And I actually thoroughly enjoy most of the campaign, opening campaign and the missions you can do and how they have like the secret missions and all that stuff. With that said, it also obviously has its biggest thing, which is its tacked on multiplayer that they just threw in there and it became a huge success. Mm-hmm. Everybody played it. I think on the back of the smart game modes that they added into the game, but just a blast 4-player. It kind of it started the whole screen cheating, looking at where people are, the proximity mines, just planting them on spawn points and things like that. Just so much fun to be had with this game. And like I said, I personally think it holds up better than most people do. Interestingly enough.
I disagree with a lot of the single player and the holding up, but I don't think anybody out there can disagree with the fact that if you went up to the not even just gamers, just the average people that probably owned an N64 during their childhood, and you said, what are the top 3 games you remember most likely? GoldenEye is going to be in that list.
Yeah.
It is a game that almost everybody had, and if you were going to go over to a buddy's house, it was to play GoldenEye or Mario Kart.
I was getting my haircut, and there was one of the, I don't know what they're called, the haircutter people.
Salon?
No,
Hairdresser, barber?
No, I don't know. Some
Stylist?
That's a nice one to describe. The stylist behind me, not the person doing my hair, but somebody else's, was just talking about how she was she was looking for N64 games, and she's like, "Man, they're really expensive now." Blah blah blah. She was kind of talking about it, but she was just like, "But I really want GoldenEye and I really want Mario Kart, so I'm gonna go get those." And I was like, "It's cool." Just she's just like, "I just want to buy an N64 and buy those games that I had." And
I think
just to your point,
I think if you were to narrow down what the two, I'm gonna bring my N64 to college, and I can only bring 2 games. It was Mario Kart 64 and GoldenEye, because those are the multiplayer experiences you wanted to play with your friends.
I disagree, but we'll talk about it later.
Sure.
Anyway,
it's okay to be wrong, Kevin.
And
Go
the
ahead,
people who played Odd Job grew up to have no friends.
Hey, I like Odd Job.
Agreed. 2/3 out of most people.
I think they actually came out and said, yeah, this is just unfair in the game. So,
What's yours, Craig?
My number 5?
Yeah.
My number 5 is Super Smash Brothers. I think that this was just kind of one of those staple games that before it came out, we had never had a crossover game like this before. I think that this was the first time it gave people who might like Mario or might like Zelda or Pokemon, and it gave them the opportunity to dive into other franchises they didn't know existed. Kind of like you said with Earthbound and F-Zero. People who didn't even know those were even games.
Yeah.
I think that one of the other things for me too is, and you kind of highlighted on it, was the actual kind of background story of this game is that you're bringing your toys to life. It's someone playing with toys of Nintendo characters, and the fact that the final boss is the game is the hand of the kid playing with the toys is just such a good idea. I think that while this is just a fighter multiplayer game, that this is something that a lot of people look back on as one of the great games of the system for that reason.
and if you think about it too, it's a good timepiece sort of scenario because that's around Toy Story kind of age. So it clicked for a lot of people. And yeah, I'm pretty sure most, at least people who grew up with action figures sort of did the I'm going to beat you up sort of thing. So it was pretty cool to sort of think about it in that way. It's just, oh, that's what the hand is. And it's not just some big magical earth-shattering thing.
Yeah.
We're on number 5. Is that
Yes.
right? GoldenEye 007. To kind of add to what Kevin said, this is a rare case for me in which the
is rare.
license product is better than what it's based off of. The GoldenEye movie,
I like
pretty
that
good.
movie.
I like it as far as, you have like 25, I think, years worth of Bond movies to go through, maybe at that point. But I like the single player more than watching through the movie, which was fine. Nothing wrong with the movie.
In the movie, can you make out what people's faces look like?
One guy
or do
can.
they all look smudgy and weird?
Is the
that's
movie
just a
in
sign of
60
time.
frames a second, though?
No, it is not.
Neither's this game.
Hard 10.
But yeah, obviously the big selling point is multiplayer, and on top of, like you said, just playing against people, just being sort of a new kind of phenomenon with these types of games. Think of all the games that just wouldn't exist without this. Literally wouldn't exist, whether it's code wise or the Call of Duties that took inspiration from that, the Halo LAN parties that wouldn't have existed, blah blah blah. You can kind of extrapolate from all that, but yeah, like this was like a very corner piece of how we play games today. And even though the Call of Duties and all that aren't so much at the forefront anymore, they still sell like millions of copies and all that, but now with the rise of sort of like the Fortnites and stuff like that, kind of getting away from it and ushering in maybe a new era of multiplayer online games, you kind of realize that this one, kind of set the precedent for it. So for historic purposes, on top of it just being a good game, number 5, right in the middle.
I like that you said that, because for historic purposes, on top of this just being a good game, my number 4, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. I will say I picked it over Majora's Mask because I think Majora's Mask just isn't as new player friendly, especially if you're only going to get one of these games. I don't think Majora's Mask is the one to get. It has a lot of odes and things to the Ocarina of Time, which makes it a little less interesting, I guess, if you hadn't played one or the other. And I personally just think the mechanics of Ocarina of Time and the exploration and everything is better in that particular game. Not too much to talk about with this game, I don't think. Everybody knows it and loves it. The music is incredible. One of the best soundtracks to a game ever. Very long N64 game compared to a lot of other things. Lots of dungeons to go through, lots of secrets to find. But I not as high up on this game as a lot of other people. I don't hate it or anything like that. I just think that there's better games in the same genre and same franchise in particular. But you got to play the Ocarina of Time. It is definitely a must-have, no questions asked. You okay with that, Craig? You like?
I will not give away any spoilers for the remainder.
I'm
of this
just
episode.
wondering, are you okay with my list so far? Have I upset you?
You have not upset me anywhere near as much as Nick has.
Okay.
My number 4 is Paper Mario. I think that Paper Mario is an extremely unique game. When they made Super Mario RPG for the SNES, they brought on Square, and I think they saw such success with that, but having Square on, I think, complicated a lot of things, such as character rights and things of that nature. And so I think they got enough where they wanted to make it their own thing, and Paper Mario was that thing. They took a lot of good ideas from it, like the timed attacks and just the RPG mechanics. And I think Paper Mario really kind of had its own art style and way to stand away from other Mario games since it was doing its own thing. I think that this is easily one of the best games on the system. It's very much an easy, friendly way to get into RPGs for people that haven't played one before. I think playing this over playing something like Final Fantasy is a very easy transition for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot more palatable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's why it still holds up strong today. I think its art style is something that even on the N64
One of
great,
the
but it
rare
looks-
games
yeah.
that holds up graphically. On the
Yeah,
N64.
like if you look at a lot of them, the polygonal effect looks terrible, namely GoldenEye. But when you look at Paper Mario, it literally
it's
looks
really stuck on
it
that.
looks the same. You know what I mean? It's just this flat kind of 2D, 3D kind of look, and it just looks great.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Not many art styles on the N64. I would say there's like 3 games that hold up visually on the N64.
I'll jump into the Zelda boat. Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. I'm not a Zelda person either. I've said it plenty of times by now, but I will say the fact that this is such a detour from the Zelda formula for me is kind of what makes it what it is. It's probably like my third favorite Zelda, second favorite, something like that.
Well, Ocarina of Time is just a remake of my favorite Zelda in 3D. So.
That's the thing that got me is that, it's just like, I don't want to call it reimagining, but that's sort of what it is in just the 3D landscape, and that's what it is. Like, obviously, a lot of parts about Majora's Mask wouldn't have existed without Ocarina.
To give the franchise credit, it lock-on targeting, and it was innovative in a lot of ways. It added tons of stuff like that many other games. It figured out 3D incredibly, like a open 3D space with a camera that's
in a way that no
moving
one else did.
that other people were really struggling to figure out how to do it.
You mean like tank controls?
Craig.
But yeah, just the uniqueness of this game. I like the mask system, music. I won't say the music's better than Ocarina. I'm not that crazy, but it's still good for what it is. And yeah, I just feel like the characters were a little bit more rounded in that game. And yeah, it was just a cool twist and another sort of system that, you're kind of meant to fail a lot in the game. So it's not just like, I died, game over, I suck sort of thing. Like you're meant to kind of trudge the same path over and over until you get all the things you need or figure it out or, whatever. So I like it, and I like when things kind of go off the beaten path, try something new, and it works. But yeah, really cool game.
Interesting. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, our top 3s. My number 3 is Mario Party 2. I agree. I think Mario Party 2 is the best of the Mario Parties, just total, like full stop. I think it's fantastic. I think it took everything from the first game and upped it without going too crazy, which is what I think they do in other games. I think it has the most fun mini games overall. I think it took all the best mini games from the first game and then kept them and then just added new mini games on top of that. It had the themed lands, which I thought was really, really cool, where your characters would dress up differently depending on what level you were playing and everything. And the awesome Bowser level where all the rules are reversed in the game. Just a lot of special things about that.
You mean one where he didn't chase you around in a compact car?
Yeah, that was awful. Don't do that anymore. But anyway, I think that this is, you were talking about games that you would bring with you to, college or whatever. If you were going to have your N64, I would bring Mario Party 2 as my party game. The fusion of a board game with video games in such a simple but smart way where it's just like, oh, you landed on a red space, you landed on a red space, you landed on blue, you landed on blue. Split up teams of 2. You guys are battling each other for this round. And then it's constantly changing your alliances, who's in the lead. There's a huge thing of luck involved, which gets you frustrated and heated. And it's such a good time.
I think when it comes to Mario Party, the only negative as far as multiplayer is concerned is if you think of GoldenEye or Mario Kart, multiplayer matches are very quick, streamlined to the point you can play a couple in a good hour. If you're playing Mario Party, you're dedicated to play Mario Party for a few hours. It's not just a quick pick up and play. I'm just going to play a quick round game.
Or at least until somebody unplugs it. Because that has happened multiple times. People get mad, yank on the controller.
You mean when the person who has the most stars and just enough coins to buy one and the next star is placed right next to them?
The worst one, I don't want to get too far off, but the worst one was the Wii one because every controller has a power button on it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, as soon as somebody gets mad, the game is literally over. Not a great design.
And in the future iterations, they added faster modes too, so it wasn't quite as big of an investment. But yeah.
Correct. But anyway, Mario Party 2, one of my favorite, definitely my favorite Mario Party, one of my favorite party games ever. Arguably my favorite, actually. Craig, you're number 3.
For my number 3, I will also throw my hat into this Zelda ring. And I'm going to choose Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
And the reason I do so
surprised.
is because, from my personal opinion, if you think of The Legend of Zelda, it's very easy to think of Link fights Ganon, saves Princess Zelda for the Triforce. And I think a lot of times that's the standard game. The telling is different, the location might be different, but that's what happens. And I think that in that franchise, for a game to do something different, something risky, something unique, I think that shows a lot. And I think for me, Ocarina of Time, while good, was A Link to the Past in 3D. I think there's a lot of good mirrors. There's not a lot it did unique and different. I think that it was a good game, and I think that it deserves being in the top of a lot of people's lists, but I don't feel like it did enough for me, different and new, other than just being in 3D, to say that it's better than Majora's Mask. I think all the things Majora's Mask did with the new characters, the timing mechanic of it being in a day, the very gloomy, dark aspect of it, there were all a lot of new things to Zelda that it didn't have before. And I think that really shows how unique and different it was and how risky it was for them to put that game out in that franchise that up to that point had not had a story like that told. And that's why I think it kind of upfronts Ocarina of Time for me a little bit.
Interesting. I did not expect that. I expected it from you. I did not expect that from you. I also don't feel very strongly either way. Like, I like Majora's Mask. I think that the gimmick mechanic in the game of the time thing is annoying. Like, I don't like that mechanic, but I think the world is way cooler in Majora's Mask. And yeah, as a Link to the Past boy, I think that Ocarina of Time is a worse Link to the Past.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to.
How are you on Skyward Sword? Just because it does all the stuff that you just said.
Yeah, but so here's my only thing against Skyward Sword. I hate the Wii. I hate the Wii a lot. I hate the motion controls of it. I hate it being forced on me.
So, just in theory, if it didn't have motion, if it was on the Switch right now, Skyward Sword, would you be down?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's
all I need. We
I've
don't
never
need to go
given
too
Skyward
crazy,
Sword a huge chance because of the motion controls. I think if they did a Zelda HD for the Switch collection, which they 100% should if they like money, they should. I would definitely be down 100%.
Okay. Just curious. Nick, you're number 3.
Mario Kart 64. I would agree that, to this day, 2018, it is not the best Mario Kart, but when it came out, for me, definitely the best Mario Kart. There's just something extra that gets added when you can just put the people next to you and play versus playing on a Game Boy Advance, all that stuff. But yeah, so not even just the normal GPs riding around, but the battle mode as well. Really fun. And it just kind of perpetuated this feeling of just getting your friends together and just playing. Like I said, I feel like my personality in middle school would have been completely different if I didn't, get to play the single player games that I wanted to, but, finally getting games where I could play against people next to me and everyone's getting, pissed off or whatever when the blue shell comes and just getting angry with your friends and then just being like, actually, I don't hate you. You're not that bad, and just going to do something else. But yeah, just palling around with friends and stuff. Yeah, this was kind of the epitome of that. You can say GoldenEye versus this versus as far as like what the main party mode thing is. But I think if I had to choose between one or the other as far as which is the party game king, I would be Mario Kart, just because I think a few more people can get incorporated into it versus a shooting game, which, kind of alienates some people, but everyone likes throwing bananas and shells and stuff, so.
The same number of people get into it because it maxes out at 4.
He's good at math.
Okay, number 2.
Yep.
Getting down to the thick of it here.
This one is a game that's near and dear to my heart. I think it is criminally underrated.
Buck Bumble.
I think it is criminally underrated, and it will be making its debut on this list right now, and that is Bomberman 64. I absolutely love everything about Bomberman 64. They haven't really done a game like this since, and I think the closest thing is actually Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. It is a platform puzzle game where you can't jump, and you're using bombs to bounce on to get to different platforms and solve puzzles. This is a puzzle game at its heart. That has kind of like a time mechanic of your bombs explode, so you don't have that one, and it kills you in one hit if you're in the explosion.
As do mini bombs.
That's true, I guess. Fact checker.
Depends how close you are.
But anyway, yeah. So lots of different. They have the typical video game thing. There's the ice world and the fire world and the garden.
Water world.
Yeah.
Usually the worst world.
And the garden, all that stuff. But it is a platforming game where you can't jump, and you need to figure out how to stack your bombs, make them bounce on top of each other, things like that to get through. It has really good boss battles and boss battle mechanics. You can lay a bomb and then pick it back up and throw it throw it in the mouth of an enemy, kind of like Zelda style, things like that. And then on top of a really awesome, satisfying puzzle single player, it has just a straight up competitive multiplayer that is probably the best version of typical Bomberman that I've played.
For most people's bring to college multiplayer, it's 007 GoldenEye and Mario Kart. For Kevin's, it's Mario Party and Bomberman.
I love Bomberman's multiplayer. It has customizable characters and outfits that you can design. Everybody can make their own Bomberman. It plays
Or Bomber Lady.
Not sure if that's actually true.
I don't know if it's true either.
I don't think it is. I don't think you can play as a female bomber lady in that. But anyway, it's the traditional like top-down style Bomberman, but they do such a good job with the levels and the integration of somebody can be over top of somebody else, like on like a bridge or something like that, and people are on the bottom level, and you can kick the bombs off the top level down to the bottom level, things like that. The power-ups are great. The skull effects, which are like these negative effects that happen, are all fair feeling. There's ones that make you really, really teeny and you can run really, really fast, but if you touch somebody, like you transfer it to them and you can really screw them up. And then it's got the best sudden death, which is, it says hurry up, and on every level it's something different, but it'll start like raining asteroids on the level, or just the walls will start coming in like Star Wars style until it just crushes both of you if you don't kill each other in time. Really, really enjoy this game so much. Criminally underrated. Bomberman 64. My number 2.
My number 2.
Bomberman 64.
Super Mario 64. I feel like this is the game that really emphasizes the system. And what I mean by that is I'm pretty sure it was the launch game.
It was.
And it really...
For a long time. No other games came out for
the reason this controller exists.
Yeah, I think that, all of this, it was made for the controller. It was Nintendo taking their biggest franchise and making it in a 3D space, showing that they could do that. And I think that a lot of this game is just very reminiscent to people's experience with the system. A lot of people can speak to, going in Bob-on Battlefield or jumping into the paintings. And I feel like it's just something where it's really the game for the system. And I feel like if you have an N64 or are going to get one and you aren't playing this game, you're doing a major injustice to yourself.
I agree. Nick?
What? I put it on the list. That being said, the better Mario game, Super Smash Brothers.
Not a Mario.
Really?
He's in the game.
It's not a Mario game.
He's on the box, too.
Not a Mario game. It's a Nintendo game for sure.
Yeah. So once
Dude,
again,
it hurts my soul to put these points on this.
it's sort of like the Mario Kart situation for me, as in it was the best Super Smash Brothers at the time for sure, but obviously it's gotten better since. But just what this game kind of did to the landscape of fighting games, even though it's not really a fighting game
At all.
It just had such a huge impact for me and all the things that I know and love now and since. That it just kind of destroyed, the idea of, oh, what fighting game do you play? Oh, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, something like that, where that's not something you can easily pass off the controller to someone else and just be like, here you go, good luck. Very simple game, lovable characters. Someone probably had at least some level of investment in the game as far as the characters and stuff like that, versus, some of this hyper realistic or these Japanese or these guys ripping each other apart sort of games that you would consider fighting games at that time. So it was just kind of what it did to the landscape of gaming is sort of the big driver here for me. But yeah, it was a really great addition to, okay, hey, we're tired of shooting each other or throwing shells at each other. Let's punch each other off of a floating platform.
Yeah, what a Nintendo way to do fighting.
Yeah.
Like, you just knock each other out of the ring, and you get a point, and it totally works.
And there was just so many, like, down-to-the-wire moments. You know, this guy's at 100% damage. You know, you're kind of close to that. Or maybe he had a couple lives up on you, but you just played it in a really smart way. Or maybe this item dropped down if you play with items. And, you know, that made the difference. There's a lot of aspects like Mario Kart where maybe if you pulled that blue shell right at the end or that red shell to save save the race, then you can kind of pull ahead at the last second. Someone else gets like an upset sort of win, and everyone's mad and yelling at each other once again.
That super hammer item was the best.
Yeah.
You open that up, you just like killed everybody.
Yeah. When you see it drop, if you're not near it, then you see everyone else just going away from it.
Yeah,
So.
it's like the sword in Halo or something. It's the sought after.
And it was really cool to get all the music in the game, see a different like approach to like, I'm fighting everyone on the back of like the Starfox ship, or I'm in Hyrule Castle or something like that. You're all just kind of beating up on each other. So yeah, it was just a cool take, and obviously it's had a tremendous impact on fighting games since.
Number ones. My number one, probably no surprise, Super Mario 64. One of my favorite games of all time. I think it's one of the other games that holds up weirdly graphically on the N64 because they didn't try to put weird textures on stuff. Like Zelda has a lot of really strange textures and things that they tried to do for like a more realistic look. And Mario, they're just like, let's not put textures on everything and make everything look like a cartoon. And I think that works.
And yeah, Zelda
still
took like a
to this
fantasy
day.
route too. So they tried to make like weird things you've never seen before with textures.
Anyway, the gameplay of this game is incredible. The exploration of this game is incredible. The amount of ways that you can play it, the fact that you can go into one world, you could basically beat this game 2 times in a row and not get any of the same stars for the most part. Like, you could play it totally differently. I think that's awesome. All the hidden jumping through, windows and looking at the sky and blasting to roofs and all the stuff that's just scattered throughout the game. You feel rewarded for your exploration so much. And it's all contained in this tightly knit hub world that I love so dearly that I don't think any other game has even remotely come close to making something as good as the Peach's castle in Mario 64 in particular. And then they figured out how to do 3D controls with this stick that was foreign to people with no clue. Like, when this came out, people had no clue how to work a stick in a video game. And Mario 64 was the one that everybody could pick up and go, oh, this makes sense. Like, this actually works and feels good. Whereas a lot of other games like that, people were just like, the camera's doing weird stuff and I can't see anything. And they even came up with really smart ideas such as like adding Lakitu as an actual, like, your camera is an actual character to kind of give you this presence in the world that you're controlling Mario, but you're looking at it through Lakitu's camera lens.
The best second person gaming experience of all time.
But anyway, yeah, Mario 64, so much to do, so much to collect, so much fun to be had. It's my number one. How about you, Craig? What could your number one possibly be?
My number one, without surprise at all, is definitely Banjo Kazooie. It's one of my favorite games of the system by a long shot. I think that everything about this game stands out. I think the visual style still holds up today. I think the soundtrack is above and beyond probably my favorite soundtrack of games in the system. I think that the character designs and story are just super unique and great. I think that taking an animal like a bear and then putting a bird in his backpack to allow him to do crazy flips and jumps and flight and all that crazy stuff, I think it adds a really unique vibe to this game that not a lot of other games can even really hold a candle to. I think that I really think that while I think Mario 64 is probably the better game overall, I think that Banjo Kazooie has a little bit more in the personality department. I think that it added a lot of new, unique things onto what Mario
Characters
64
actually
created.
talk. I guess Toad kind of talks, and Peach sort of talk. I don't mean voice acting. I mean like there's
Well,
text.
to be fair, in Banjo Kazooie, it's all like one. It's like one sound just kind of done in different volumes.
It's a lot.
I don't know. I just think
Effect.
I just think it's great. I think everything about that game is phenomenal. I think if anybody was going to get an N64 and they weren't considering this game, I would probably recommend it to them first. Plus, I named my dog after the bear, so which is also great.
I thought you named after the instrument.
No, definitely not.
Nick.
I am also going down the rare path and naming the best rare game ever, Perfect Dark.
I was curious what yours was going to be.
Better than GoldenEye. True statement. Even though no one else here agree with me, which is all right.
Neither of those are even on my list. So
I was about to say,
I might
according to
agree.
our
You didn't
list.
say GoldenEye?
No.
Wow. Okay. I thought I would have caught that. But
I caught that.
I also didn't say Mario Kart 64.
I caught that too.
damn. Well, I guess yeah, you would catch it. But,
That's true.
yeah, everything about this game, like everything about the GoldenEye experience, the cool single player, the cool little missions that you can do, and the awesome multiplayer that maybe shouldn't have happened, but it did, and then blossomed into what it has been known for since. Perfect Dark is just like, if that's GoldenEye, Perfect Dark is just like 5 times extra with all that. The missions so much cooler. You have everything from basic, kind of spy stuff all the way to like aliens dropping in. It just kind of hits all sorts of little marks. Much more like an Area 51 type vibe. It's got way cooler weapons in it. You've gun, like everything had a secondary, sometimes a tertiary kind of purpose to it too. One of the more classic ones was what they call a laptop gun. As soon as you run out of bullets in it, you instead of like, oh, I got to switch to another weapon or I got to kill him to take his ammo sort of thing, you could just hit the secondary fire, throw it up into like a corner, and it would just become a sentry. So even if you're completely out of ammo and someone ran into the room, it'd just kill them, like a sentry turret. Everything just had so many like functions, and there's different ways to go about stuff, and I like variety in that type of game. It's hard unless you just get a really good weapon or you're just more comfortable with a weapon. It's hard to kill people the same way, the same time, every single, like if you get an AK-47 in GoldenEye, you're going to kill them the same way you normally would every time you get that gun. Versus this game where you can have the same gun, you can kill them multiple ways, and much bigger variety of guns, much bigger variety of characters. The only thing it didn't have going for it in the, I guess, GoldenEye versus Perfect Dark comparison is the license. Still had really cool music though. Had interesting little game modes too, like counter-operative mode, where you're used to games where you can jump in and play like co-op with someone, and this one was you enter the game as an enemy and you're ruining someone's day or trying to.
Oh, you just ruined someone's day with this list. I want you guys to know.
Was it mine? Is my day ruined?
You ruined the internet's day. I can't wait to tell you, but keep going.
Internet doesn't like me anyway, it's fine. But yeah, it was just, I guess, sort of liking it to what you said about Mario Party 2 versus the original. For me, it felt like they took a very solid core of a game, and every single category, they just made it better, aside from maybe music. Because everyone knows kind of like the James Bond theme. And a lot of levels had really cool music too. But really smart game, really interesting game. Would like more Perfect Dark. I would even like more James Bond games too. But yeah.
All right. So I've tallied it up. There is one tiebreaker to break. So not too much.
Are we going to go to that when we get to its spot in the list? We're going to do it right now?
Yep. Mario Kart 64 versus Mario Party 2. Craig has voted for Mario Party 2, obviously. I have voted for Mario Party 2 as well, I guess.
What spot in the list is it for? Can we know that?
5 and 6.
Is it killing? Oh, yeah. I was going to say, is it killing a game
oh,
off?
Yeah,
no,
I wanted
no,
to
no.
know if it knocked somebody out.
Oh,
Like
no.
11. Okay.
So, I would assume Mario Party 2 would win.
I say put Mario Party above it because I said Mario Party and you said 2. So that's 3 Mario Parties per se. So 3 for the franchise, if you want to look at it that way. Whereas 2 of us said Mario Kart and he didn't. So
Okay.
That's fair.
Other than that, it's been clean.
Interesting. I thought there would have been a.
Kevin looks really upset.
I'm not upset.
Yeah, wait till you hear.
I will say number 11, just to do it, is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Oh, okay.
Because
See, I
it
feel
got
like
knocked off the list.
That's not as much us, though, as not being able to allow to pick 2 games from a franchise. Because if we could, both of them would have been on my top 10, for sure. Just saying.
Number 10, Pokemon Snap, the game that knocked Legend of Zelda off the list by 1 point.
We don't need your Metacritic here.
By 1 point. Number 10, Pokemon Snap. Number 9, Bomberman 64. Number 8, Perfect Dark. Number 7, GoldenEye 007. Number 6, Mario Kart 64. Number 5, Mario Party 2. Number 4, Banjo Kazooie. Number 3, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Number 2, Super Smash Bros. And number 1, Super Mario 64. I think that is a pretty good list, except I really do think Ocarina of Time should be on there above Snap.
There's
But-
a couple omissions. I think that
But other than that, I think that
I think
is
Banjo
totally
Kazooie
fine.
not on there makes me very upset.
Not what?
It was number 4.
He's
Was
number
it
4.
Yeah.
Oh, I misheard you say it then. Never mind. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, Banjo was number 4. See, I wasn't sure.
I didn't remember where you put it, so I was worrying that it'd be
6 or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, if
I
you
could've-
put something number 1, it's pretty.
yeah. Well, that's what I was worried about.
It was close to
Yeah.
not getting number 1s on the list, though. I mean, my number 4s didn't make it, and number 3s wouldn't have made it.
Yeah,
either.
I couldn't remember
So-
how low you put it on yours,
Yeah.
which is why I was.
No,
a little
and,
worried.
and basically anything that showed up twice was good to go. But yeah, like I think it was 19 total games that we brought up to the table.
Surprised that neither of you guys said Paper Mario. That does kind of blow my
I
mind.
thought about it as my number 10.
Yeah.
And I went with Starfox, like Paper Mario, F-Zero.
Conker's was my number 11, so
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean,
know
to be
you guys
fair,
liked
I
it
didn't
as
even
much.
put Mario Kart, James Bond 007, or
Yeah, you
there was another one I didn't put either.
Perfect Dark.
No, I didn't put that, but I also didn't put what's the one
Smash?
you just said? No, I put
No, you had
Smash.
Smash.
There's one other one you just said.
Ocarina of Time.
No, what's number 10?
Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
There's
he
one other
snapped.
one. I didn't put Star Fox.
Oh, okay.
So I skipped like 3 pretty heavy titles that I think.
Yeah, overall, I like this list though, except for I think that the Zelda omission is not great.
That's
but-
just that's how our rules work
Yeah.
out.
Sure.
If the rules were different,
Let me
I don't
let
think
me
anyone would
rephrase this.
disagree.
I think you guys putting Pokemon Snap on the list was the problem, not the other way around.
Well, yeah, but I think everyone here in the room can agree that if we were allowed to put multiple from a franchise on, that both Legend of Zeldas would have been above Pokemon Snap, and both of our.
I wouldn't have put Ocarina of Time above.
Really? I would have definitely had both above Pokemon Snap in my list.
Why is Pokemon Snap on your list? Is the thing I'm
It's
dwelling on.
Yeah,
Why
it's
do you play
sweet.
Pokemon Go? It's the same idea.
Yeah, you of all people should not be bashing Pokemon Snap. You're
hate
like a
Pokemon
Pokemon
Snap.
Go fanatic.
So what?
It's the same thing, but on your phone.
No, it's not. I don't
Yes,
throw
I'm-
apples at the
You're throwing
Pokemon.
basically
I don't
an
take
apple.
I don't take photos of the. I guess some people do, huh? I guess they do, huh?
It's literally Pokemon Snap on your phone, dude.
Mm.
But the real life instead of a cart.
All right, let me change my list. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with that list overall. 9 and up, I think, is a great N64 buying guide. And anyway, if anybody is actually going to be buying the N64, they know Ocarina of Time's out there. They know it's doing its thing. They know they got to get it.
Yeah.
So overall, very good list. Thank you for being here, Craig, to help out with this one.
Goodbye.
The Nintendo. Nope, not yet. That's once again. That's not how that works. Thank you for being here, Nick.
I will leave my address down below if you really love Ocarina of Time.
And thank you so much for watching. We will speak with you next time.
Goodbye.